recording. Okay, so I'll share this recording with everyone and the minutes after the meeting, but I just wanted to welcome everybody to the September quarterly all neighborhood meeting. Today, our guest speakers are Move PGH and Spin. They'll be talking about, the recent launch of the Spin scooters that have come to town, and they'll give a short presentation, and then we'll have a little bit of time to do Q&A. For right now, though, if you want to, please chat your name and your neighborhood in the chat, and I will drop the link to the notes once again in the chat. And if you want to follow along with the agenda there, or drop any links that you want to share for events or things, you can do that at the bottom. But we're gonna just start right off with introducing Tosh and Danny, who are going to kick us off. So I will let you guys take it from here. Sweet. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Just to make sure you guys can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so yeah, just to introduce myself, my name is Daniel, or you can call me Danny. I manage partnerships for Spin. We're partnered with Move PGH, and we have Tosh joining me on this presentation.
Thanks, Danny. Yep, Tosh here, representing Move PGH. I believe I've presented at this group before and enjoyed that experience. So looking forward to focusing mostly on Spin scooters here tonight.
All right, sweet. So just to give you guys a quick little introduction to Spin, we were founded in 2017, and we currently operate e-bike and e-scooter share services to over 80 cities and campuses across the world. One thing that makes us a little bit different is that we're not a venture capitalist-backed mobility company. We're actually a subsidiary of Ford under their mobility umbrella. So yeah, just to talk a little bit about Spin in Pittsburgh, we launched last July, and the permit is going to last another 2 years. Currently, the fleet size is at 1,000 scooters throughout the entire city limits. We also have a network of Spin hubs, which are the docking and charging stations. We're currently at 16, and we're working towards the goal of getting 50 on the ground. That's just like an end goal. And then hours of operation, you can check out a scooter 24 hours a day. Also, just the cost to riders generally is $1 to unlock and 39 cents a minute to ride. Just to give you a little bit of insight to the vehicles that we have in Pittsburgh, they also have swappable batteries, which are a new thing that we have. They actually make it a little bit more eco-friendly to operate, because then all we have to do is bike out or travel out to an empty scooter and flip the battery with a charged one, as opposed to picking up the scooter and driving it back to the warehouse to then charge and then bring back out. So one of those swappable batteries, fully charged, gets you 31 miles. The scooters weigh 50 pounds. They have a weight limit of 220, and they top out at 15 miles an hour. From just like a safety and durability perspective, they have puncture-resistant tires, anti-lock brake system, and also just all of the LEDs and reflectors are visible from 500 feet away. So I'm going to pass it off to Tosh, talk a little bit about the riding policies.
Right. So these are the policies related to how you would ride a scooter in the city of Pittsburgh. They were kind of crafted in partnership of DOMI, the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, working with Spin to customize these to Pittsburgh. But the main takeaway is that these should be operated mostly akin to a bicycle. They would be ridden in bike lanes or travel lanes on the right side, and paved trails are okay as well. One of the main takeaways is that they are not permitted to be ridden on sidewalks, and there's a lot of messaging really for all of these inside the app and sometimes on the scooter regarding these kind of rules. But no riding on sidewalks is kind of the main one. Certain other pedestrian ways, such as plazas, riding is prohibited. as is riding on highways or freeways, or really any road with a speed limit above 25 miles per hour, which can be somewhat dangerous. Of course, riders may not be intoxicated while they are riding, and you must be 18 or older to operate a scooter. At least that's SPIN's policy. And it's also only one rider is allowed per scooter, although that's not always the case. That's SPIN's policy as well. Helmets are encouraged, though not required, similarly to with bicycles. And of course, they must adhere to the rules of the road, as you would with a bicycle. On the left-hand side, I also want to call out any example that you would see in contrast to these kind of rules that we've laid out here. If you do notice any kind of bad behavior, what I would encourage you to do is take a picture of that, and especially trying to get the ID number, which you can kind of see is above the front wheel of the scooters. Take a picture of that, and with a short description, send that along to the support line at SPIN. We can also take those in through 311, but they get routed directly to SPIN. So the most direct way to take care of things is to send it to SPIN directly. And then for emergencies, of course, I would encourage folks to dial 911. And switching gears to the parking policies. So they must be parked in a legal parking spot at the curbside, really. So off of the sidewalks, in the street, but in a legal parking spot with the wheels perpendicular to the curb is typically what we would allow. And we also have a couple other options of parking at hubs, like the one you see on the left, and you would actually receive a discount for your ride if you were to park there. And then also you may have seen some of the micro mobility corrals, which is kind of like a painted box with a scooter symbol. We encourage folks to park at those as well. And actually we're starting to test this out now, but in some areas where it's kind of a dense commercial area, downtown, for example, we'll have a lot of these parking hubs and corrals, and we're starting to test requiring parking at one of those nodes. So you wouldn't be able to park kind of free form at the curb. So in certain areas, we'll be testing that out, and in downtown, I think we just turned that on. Aside from that, we encourage folks to park near the end of the block or next to in-street bike racks. And then generally, scooters should not be blocking any paths of travel. Of course, pedestrian ways such as sidewalks, full-on travel lanes, or bike lanes. Those are all no-nos. And additionally, no blocking crosswalks, ADA ramps, curb cuts or driveways, bus stops, loading zones, or other street access points. And also no parking on private property. And maybe I forgot one, no parking in green areas like gardened patches. But yeah, there's a lot of things you shouldn't do when parking a scooter, but as long as you keep to parking at one of the hubs or corrals or in a legal parking spot, you should be fine.
Cool. All right, so just to switch gears, as partnerships manager, SPIN Access, which is our access and equity program, is kind of the biggest thing I'm working on in Pittsburgh. And just to give you an overview of that program, it provides 70% off rides to any qualified resident of Pittsburgh. And to qualify, you just need to be enrolled in any local, state, or federal benefits program. The application is available in 6 different languages, and it also provides a way for people without smartphones or bank accounts or credit cards to use our scooters. This is done through a partnership with PayPal through their digitized cash program, and then also via cash cards, which are pictured on the right. Those are available at our warehouse for purchase, but then also soon to be community organizations. So I mean, if any of you guys would be interested in hosting cash card payment locations, let me know. Also, soon to be at just all the community events that we attend. And then finally, from an access standpoint, we're starting to implement access zones, which is a new program we've been rolling out in cities where we work with community partners to determine special areas of need where, whether it be, from an income standpoint or just a transit standpoint, where we subsidize the rides and we provide automatic discounts in those geographically drawn areas to any trip that begins or ends within it. So yeah, that's the overview of Spin Access. And then just with that being said, would love to partner with any one of you guys, whether it's on Spin Access or even on a streets infrastructure project, which is another realm that I get pretty heavily involved with in my work. And it's something that we actually do in all the cities we operate in. We more or less provide funding or materials to push a bike ped scoot project across the finish line. Or, if you guys have opportunities for us to do a Spin Safe event, which is just generally a tabling event sponsorship deal where we show up, help onboard riders, offer ride and drive demonstrations, go over those rules of the road that Tosh was just going over, and then also give out free helmets. And then, finally, I'm happy to share with you guys one-pagers digitally or drop off flyers at any of your facilities about any of these programs, or something totally new. Yeah, would love to talk with you guys and learn more about your work and your community and just see where we can take it from there. Cool, and that's it. You guys got any questions?
Thank you. Yeah, that was very fast. There was one question in the chat about the parking. It says, like, what about parking at bike racks when the bike rack is on the sidewalk?
Yeah, so I can take that. So parking is prohibited on sidewalks. So I would generally say find a better parking space than that. I would say that parking next to a bike rack when it is on the sidewalk is better than it blocking the pedestrian way. But generally, yes, we want to keep them completely off of the sidewalks. And the other question on the 311 reports, I just looked at this, but the routing for how you would submit that, it's labeled parking. You'd have to go to parking issues, and then under that there should be a category just for Spin.
Gotcha. There's one more question in the chat, and then we'll jump over to Bruce. So are you limited just to the Pittsburgh area? And how about moving outside of that area?
Yes, so answer is yes, that we are limited to just the city of Pittsburgh, and that's part of how the scooter pilot was designed and passed at the state level, is that it really only authorizes the classification of this type of vehicle within the bounds of city of a second class, which Pittsburgh is one of the only in Pennsylvania. So unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to take these to the neighboring communities outside of Pittsburgh.
Bruce.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing? I have two questions. The first question is, the scooters have been deployed for a while, and I know that there were a couple efforts to encourage folks to report to 311 when they did see any issues with scooters, either parking or the riding, whatever. Wondering, is there already a list or some sort of database that has aggregated these 311 reports so we can actually see the pattern and the behavior and maybe how they have changed or maybe they haven't changed, and how that might inform better messaging on the part of Spin or the city to get the message better across to the users of these scooters on what you just presented, which is great. And the Second question I have is, how do you see the city council's latest introduction of legislation towards the use of scooters in Pittsburgh? How do you see that playing a part in the future of scooters in our city moving forward, if that does or doesn't pass, and how maybe Spin could better work with the city? I know you're already working really well with the city, but if you were, then there wouldn't have been a city council legislation on it. So wondering, like, just wondering how you see that moving forward, and if there's a way that that these issues can be addressed other ways than legislation. I know that was a lot, but 2 questions. Thanks.
Yeah, both good ones. And yeah, welcome those questions. So with the first one, in the reports that we're getting through 311, and also there are similar, the requests sent to directly to Spin. We do have a database of those on record that the city and Spin have been keeping, and kind of assessing what the level of and frequency of those requests are. We haven't made those public yet. I know we've shared approximately how many requests we have gotten in, but I will share that the rate of requests is generally decreasing week over week. So we've seen probably we're seeing maybe half as many that we do per week than maybe the first couple weeks that we launched. And now there's actually a little bit of a transition to requests that are related to repairs of the scooters. Now that they've been out on the streets a little bit, that's mostly what we're seeing now. Folks wanting them to be recharged or repaired so they can take them around. Yeah, that's something that we're continually collecting, and is definitely a kind of a metric of the success of scooters in Pittsburgh. I think everyone would agree on that. I think we're still deciding exactly how we like make that public, and if we do, and how it kind of exactly factors in to whether or not a Spin continues in the city of Pittsburgh. We do have the 2-year pilot in mind that we're committed to, but unless we see something surprising, such as like a huge increase in the requests or complaints, then I don't think it would allow us to kind of cut off Spin or ask them to leave the city. But it is something that we consider and use that information to improve the geofences and other kind of specifics to the operation. I'll answer the other question as well, but I'll also give Danny a chance to chime in. But the council action that's happening to kind of codify some of the specific aspects of how scooters should be operated in the city, that is something that we had wanted to just have as an executive kind of order and privilege of the director of DOMI issuing guidance through a policy document that outlined those regulations. But we were told by the city's law department that should be passed through council and encoded to be a little bit more official. I don't know the exact kind of decision that they made to make it go to that next level, but yeah, that was thankfully I think it is a good option, because it does kind of give an opportunity for additional voices to be heard regarding the scooter program and feedback on the specifics of the regulations. I think with this action, it gets us really what we want in at least the policies of how scooters should be operated in the city. But it's an avenue that we may exercise again if we should identify other policies that need to be encoded.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Danny, did you have anything to add?
No, I think that Tasha's nailing it. I don't have much else to add to that, to be honest. Thank you, though.
Yeah, I'll toss it over to Eric, and then there's a bunch of questions in the chat. I also wanted to encourage people to just raise your hand and I'll call on you. There's a raise hand function at the bottom. I think it's under reactions, at least on the version that I have. Click on that, raise your hand, but also just feel free to unmute yourself after someone's done with their question. Go ahead, Eric.
Oh yeah, hey, my question's about the geofencing, and I've seen it work. Like I witnessed someone trying to go across the Fort Pitt Bridge, and thankfully the geofencing worked, and he turned around, and then we tried to go into Point State Park, and the geofencing worked again, and so I gave him directions to get to the north side using the bike lane. But then I've also seen it, like, heard examples of it not working, like there's that Liberty Ave thing. So I'm curious how that, or the Liberty Tunnel incident. So I'm curious how that happened, first of all. Is it, and how you deal with, like, you know, roads that are legal to ride on that are above roads that are illegal to ride on. And then one other quick question, like, related to that is, like, we've also been hearing reports of them being left in the middle of the 40th Street Bridge, because apparently you get to Millvale once you're in the middle of the bridge. And I don't know if that's why they're being left there or not, but if there's anything we can do to help address that. So I know that was multifaceted, but the geofencing is really interesting.
Yeah, just to jump in, and Tosh, you probably know maybe just as much, if not more than I do. I can at least put in my 2 cents. I mean, when it comes to geofences, they're not always perfect off the bat, and it does really take that community feedback to incorporate it, and also keep special attention on select areas. Like you're mentioning, a lot of scooters ending in the middle of a particular bridge. That's something that would be extremely valuable to my operations team, who are not only managing the fleet, but managing and implementing these geofences. And I mean, we can definitely do things to adjust it to make it more sensitive, or even just make it larger. So then maybe it would prohibit, like, scooters in that example with the bridge, like, from even getting on the bridge in the first place. I think there's a lot of stuff that we could do, and it really does take a few runs of refinement for it to work properly. But then also geofencing in general, sometimes it's just like a cell phone signal, you know, like sometimes it has those moments of just poor signal, and then certain things slip through the cracks, which is unfortunate. But it does seem like over the last 2 years that I've been at Spin, it's gotten a lot better. But I really do think it's a community thing, and I would welcome all of the call outs you guys have, so I can at least pass this information to our operations team. Yeah, Tosh, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of good questions around this in the chat as well. What I know about how the geofencing works is that, you know, all the scooters have the GPS in the unit, and it pings periodically, but there's like I think 10 or 15 seconds in between those pings. So in some cases it can get kind of into those no ride zones a little bit before it recognizes it's in a no ride zone. And then what happens is that just throttle kicks out, the motor kicks out, and the scooters can still kind of roll or act as a kick scooter in those zones. So that's what you may see sometimes. In the example of, like, the Liberty Tunnel, we actually did have the entrance and, like, the area around it all as a no ride zone. But what could have happened, what I think happened, is somebody encountered that and just kept kicking, riding, and then they got on the other side, and then they were able to use the throttle again. So what we did in that case is we then geofenced the entire tunnel, and then we said, oh yeah, but then you can't ride on the streets of Mount Washington above that. So, like, there's kind of, I think we're working on like a spotty kind of patchwork. So the most of the tunnel is geofenced, but it won't affect the streets above. And yeah, that's somewhat of a unique challenge here in Pittsburgh with the tunnels. But hopefully now you know a little bit more about how it works.
Yeah, thanks. That's what I figured, but that's really interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, also just to add to this subject, I'm seeing some messages in the chat about just crowdsourcing violation reports. I mean, you guys can fully just email me if you'd like, and I can just Slack message or like text message or even call our operations team just to make sure, like they're just real time, they're just addressing it as soon as possible.
Can you share the email address to reach you directly?
Yeah, I'll type it in my in the chat right now.
Thank you. On the topic kind of parking, what happens if people don't follow the parking rules? Like, are there repercussions for it? And I'll stop there and then scroll down to see the other questions.
Yeah, so there are repercussions. I think I saw somebody ask, like, how is this reported? So really the best way for it to be reported is kind of a crowdsourced way. If you notice someone parked against the rules that we laid out, you would take a picture, send it to that support line. We also have that, gave that information to the parking officers and the police officers in the city. So they're also reporting there. And I believe like Spin, when they're out relocating the scooters, they are kind of tracking that as well. Whenever that is reported though, they cross-reference that with they know who rented it last, and the person who rented it last takes a picture of how they parked. So they cross-reference there to see if that matches up, because in some cases people may have moved the scooters like out of the parking lane to park their car, or somebody else, moved it. So there is that kind of QA aspect that happens. But yeah, if you were in violation of that, on your first go, you would receive a warning from Spin, but then the second strike is that you would receive a fine. And beyond that, it's either suspension or a ban from Spin.
Thank you. I'm going to go to one more question in the chat, and then Barb, I'll put it over to you. The question in the chat, though, is: Are there any other cities that have the hubs deployed for at least 6 months to a year? And if so, do you have any data that you could share on the usage of the hubs versus street parking?
I mean, in the almost 2 years I've been working for Spin, I know at a bunch of college campuses, they've been operating with their hubs for a little while. I know in certain cities, like in Chicago, for example, they had pilot programs that just lasted over the course of like a summer and fall, and they had hubs, but it wasn't 6 months. It was like, 4 months or so. I'll definitely have to get back to you on that. But I would imagine the hubs would function similarly to like a bike share station. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I answered the question, but
yeah. And
yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to clarify that a little bit or at all.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, unlike bike share, at least in Pittsburgh, you have to use the hub for bike share, but it seems like the hubs for Spin are optional. And it seems like there is a lot of parking issues, especially since there is not the additional like cable lock that some other cities have implemented to like require you to lock it up to a light pole or bike parking or something. So yeah, I was just interested to know if you had any data with those deployments where like people just found it easier to use the hubs versus just randomly finding parking or vice versa.
Sure. I wish I had a better answer for that, because I am kind of a dork when it comes to the hubs thing. And I actually used to work for bike share in Chicago. But yeah, I mean, I think my best guess would just be to look at like the data from like Jump, when it was around, because they, in a lot of cities, had, you know, the e-bike that you could just drop anywhere. And then in cities like Providence, Rhode Island, they had an entire network of hubs, but it wasn't required that you park there. I would just figure the data would look pretty similar. However, I don't know if Jump does this, but we do this for Spin. We incentivize folks to drop their scooters at a hub by giving them $1 off their next ride. So I would be genuinely curious, just because it is a new thing that we've been doing, just to see if that incentive actually works.
Yeah, I'll say that we have been interested in this as, or I know Domi has been, and it's not something that we've run the numbers for quite yet. I think like we're waiting for there to be a little bit more of a data pool to draw from to make an inference on whether the hubs really are a preference and help to organize parking on the street. And you know, we'll be taking a look at that pretty soon. I will say though, we in many of the areas where there are hubs, we'll be testing out this this kind of policy where you're required to park at those areas if you're parking on that kind of busy corridor. So, you know, once that's in place, it'll kind of be a slightly different calculation.
Thanks. Barb, you, and then Bruce, and then I have a question. If you want to unmute yourself, Barb, and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks. Just unmuting. Yeah, so yeah, my name's Barb Warwick. I live in 4 Mile Run, and I guess I had sort of a question around safety. Now, this is all anecdotal from my perspective, but I have seen in my neighborhood in Greenfield and Hazelwood, I've seen lots of the scooters since they came out, and the vast majority of times that I have seen them, it's been young kids, teenagers riding them without helmets, of course. And the one that really made me sort of, on the front, again, of course, no helmets, just flying down 2nd Avenue, which is a huge street where people drive 40 miles an hour all the time, right? So I guess I just like to, I've heard you say that you're doing like safety outreach but I guess I don't really see families having time to come to like a safety outreach event for the scooters that have been introduced into their city, right, by you guys. And then sort of an extension of that, I feel like the sort of crowdsourcing on all the problems. Again, I'm only speaking for myself, but we're all here on this call, but it's not your typical Pittsburgher who's able to just stop and take a picture and file a complaint and send an email like, that is not the norm. So it just seems to me that the safety, particularly the safety, and then of course the parking issues where you're having sidewalks and bike lanes, et cetera, blocked, so you're inconveniencing other commuters or walkers, bikers, whatever. It seems to me that you need to have a more robust plan for managing the problems that come with, albeit very cool, fun scooter program that everybody seems to like. They're popular, but I don't know. I'm just wondering if you have a more long-term plan. I know this is a 2-year pilot, but for enforcement, because I definitely don't see like the crowdsourcing, me stopping and taking a picture every time I see a poorly parked scooter, or I don't even know how I would take a picture of a teenager flying down 2nd Avenue with their little brother on the front of the scooter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to try and dig into a few points you made, in addition to just like us taking that community approach with the crowdsourcing, and then also looking for partners, whether it's, neighborhood councils or community organizations that have farmers markets or community events, really like anything that is available to us, we will show up and do that in-person outreach. In addition to all of that, I've definitely in my work, I've been hearing a lot of response from partners in Pittsburgh about the underage riding or just young kids doubling up. I have actually partnered with DOMI's Safe Routes to School department, and I created a postcard that was addressed to parents that was given out at the backpack stuffing day that they had last month, and have been working with them to just get that greater messaging out to the parents. And then also we've taken extra steps, even in app, just when a ride begins and it's within a quarter mile of a public school, it gives you extra messaging that just reinforces the rule that you need to be over 18 to operate it. But unfortunately, I mean, there's these underage riders are the result of parents just giving their children their credit card, because you can't operate it without a bank account or a credit card. And so you need to be 18 or older to ride. So there's a way that they're kind of working around that as well when it comes to just the ID verification. So, I mean, all I can really do is just show up as much as possible in person to try and help culturally change the concept of what are the do's and don'ts of shared mobility, but then also work with partners to get, for example, Safe Routes to School, where we can just get in front of those parents and in front of those students to further reinforce the concept of the do's and don'ts of shared mobility. Tosh, would you like to add anything?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for example, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little prickly about this. The idea that kids have their parents' credit card, that's sort of standard operating procedure when you have a teenager, right? Credit card transactions are the way we spend money now, right? So I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of Facebook Messenger kids. It's a very elaborate process for my child to get on Messenger, and then I get notified, and then you know what I mean? There's this extensive back and forth between me and Facebook before my kid can get on Messenger. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Thing like that. You guys need, it's not enough to say, well, the rules are there and the kids aren't following them, and if their parents just didn't give them a credit, I mean, that's not fair, right? That's not how parenting teenagers works in 2021. So it's just my suggestions to you guys, because I foresee that, and I'm sort of neutral on this program. Well, but in terms of just sort of objectively speaking, in terms of the program overall, I see that being the downfall, right? Is when some kid flies off, cracks their head open, that'll be the end, I would think, in Pittsburgh of the program. So I feel like that level of safety, that's up to you guys to make that more robust.
Yeah, and I totally agree that this is probably top of mind in some of the concerns that we've heard from folks, and we are certainly kind of assessing every option and in finding a solution to decrease that number that we see. I think a lot of the education does need to make its way directly to parents. Unfortunately, how the service works, there's not a lot of that, if all of the information that is input by someone under 18 is verified, there's we wouldn't want to risk kind of false positives of turning away folks that should be allowed to and should use the service. But I will also say, we've been working closely with our police officers to help to recognize this and so they know exactly how they should encounter folks. And if it is, and
Even that though, like police officers. So, you know, I live next to Hazelwood. So what does that mean now? Like now police officers are involved. So now they're being like criminalized. These kids are being criminalized for using the scooters that are so easy for them to use. All they need is their parents' credit card.
oh, well, I should,
I'm just
so,
I'm sorry I keep pushing, but these, to me, these are grave issues with the program. And that's, I mean, this seemed like, I haven't read any of this in the Gazette or, you know, I haven't read about any of these concerns. And so that's why I came to this call.
right. No, and to the point I was making is the police officers are instructed not to ticket underage folks, but to report directly to SPIN, and when it's been verified that they're not of age, that account will be revoked immediately. No 3 strikes for that underage riding. So I definitely hear you, and we are doing everything we can to make sure we reduce that behavior. And you know, we welcome any other thoughts or suggestions and things we can do.
Thank you. Thanks, Barb, for the question, and Tasha and Danny for answering as best everyone could. I just want to keep things moving. Bruce, you're next, and then myself, and then if we have time, Mary. Hopefully, I want to end this portion by 7, just to move on with things and be sensitive to everyone's time. So go for it, Bruce.
Great, thanks. I'll make it quick. One of the points when this was being launched was the equity component of SPIN and how diversifying the mobility options for particularly communities of color and neighborhoods of color would help access and their ability to actually like get to work, get to jobs, get to school. Wondering, do you have any data on if that has been in a way a success? Like, have these communities that really don't have transportation, has the scooters helped them, and or does SPIN and or Tosh here have concrete plans moving into the future in the next couple of months on how to better reach these communities of color that were kind of touted at the very beginning of this process and this program? I'm saying this because I really want to make sure that we have a larger big picture plan of this program. And while like the details of parking on sidewalks and kind of the access to geofencing is, I think, really important, I want to also like make sure that we're staying on point with like, this is really hopefully a solution, particularly for those who might not have other ways to get around town. Has this worked? Has this program worked yet? And if it hasn't, is there something that SPIN is going to be doing to actually advance what they promised?
I'm happy to, answer that. And that is honestly top of mind and a question that we do get pretty often, and one that I get from my bosses pretty often, like, what is the data telling us and how these are being used by different folks? And I honestly, unfortunately, demographic information isn't shared with SPIN when folks are signing on. So that's not something that we inherently have in the data. Really, the best we can do at this point is just see where the trips are happening and kind of make inferences in that way. And though we do plan to push out a survey to all users to gain some understanding about who is using this, how they're using it, and how it is potentially improving folks' lives. I will say, like, we do, there's Danny mentioned the SPIN Access program, but there's other ways that we want to make this service very accessible for those who need it most. And one of the ways we plan on doing that pretty soon is by creating access zones is what they're called. And it involves just kind of drawing out geographies in Pittsburgh that from what we know, through demographic and financial information, there are populations that could use kind of easier access to these services. So we'll be creating those zones, and inside those folks will get a discounted ride. I think we're currently planning it would be somewhere around 50% off rides for trips started in that area. And there's also an opportunity to communicate kind of the spin access program in areas of that type as well. So we are really interested in how that is happening. We can only really share anecdotal information at this point, but we'll once we do have that data, we'll be ready to share.
Yeah, just to add to that, the Access Zone program, we have it rolled out in a few other cities, and it's been working quite well. And yeah, like as Tosh just mentioned, when a user begins a trip in that access zone, they get extra messaging, including a link that will just direct them to the application for the actual Spin Access program that just gives them unlimited 70% off discounts on all of their rides. And yeah, I mean, we're working with Domi to figure out where those zones should be set in place, and also would welcome any of you guys to meet with me and just give me some suggestions, or even I also have a mapping tool as far as like deployments go, like where you would like to see scooters, where you would not like to see them. We have a community oriented tool that I can share with you guys as well if you want to put in some input.
Great, thank you. So my question is, pretty much everybody on this call has directly or indirectly helped to build or advocate for all the bike infrastructure that exists in the entire city, which is pretty much what all of your spin users are using to get around and be safe. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that last slide that you had up about helping people to like build projects and stuff, because everybody on this call is part of what we call bike ped groups, and there's about 30 of them inside the city and the surrounding municipalities, and their primary goal is to connect all of the missing links of the bike network in the city. And obviously, funding is one of the biggest problems. And so I feel like that messaging that you had put up on that slide is something that all these groups could really take advantage of. And I just didn't know how much funding was out there for these groups, if how that works, and how everyone on this call could get involved with that, like building side of stuff.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I put that on the presentation very deliberately, because that's like one of the main things that I partner with bike ped organizations in all the other cities that I manage partnerships in. And I mean, we have an entire department just made up of urban planners and like designers that basically just do tactical urbanism projects in all the cities that we operate in. And it's always a layup with one of our community partners. As far as like budget goes, it really ranges all over the place. I don't have a ton of insight or info on what that looks like, but I know the projects have scaled from very small to very large. Like I could just spit out some examples, like in Providence, Rhode Island, we're going to pilot a bike lane corridor project, like a couple miles of it, do a couple different configurations and pilot it for a few weeks, have like a community event centered around it. We're doing all the outreach and engagement with all the stakeholders adjacent to it, just to figure out what would be the best fit. So like we're piloting a bike lane. We did the same thing in Salt Lake City, where we just basically improved the bike ped, like the crosswalk situation, bulbed out the intersection, made the crosswalks more visible, bike lanes, added bollards and paint to them. In Chicago, we helped fund community garden and a shipping container bike shop, and have added to the signage there. It really ranges all over the place. And actually recently we gave out like 35 different grants to different community organizations all over the United States to do parking day projects. So like in LA, for example, we worked with a neighborhood council to do like 5 different parklets across the neighborhood. So like it can really range all over the place, and it really does just, it relies on what the community needs. And yeah, I totally slipped that into the presentation because I was hoping someone would want to follow up with me on that.
Is there like an application or
Yes.
like, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of, okay, so
Yeah,
a lot of
sorry.
groups aren't 501c3s, but they have like a neighborhood group that maybe they could work with, or ourselves at Bike Pittsburgh. Like how does that work?
I don't think it matters what type of an organization you are. In my experience facilitating these partnerships, it seems like it's ranged from the type of organization it is. Really all I would need is just like, you know, an introduction and an overview of like some of the projects you guys have in mind. Stuff that's like a little more baked would be easier for us to just like, you know, push across the finish line. Once I get like a better understanding of like the different options or just the general scope, I can pass that off to the streets infrastructure team. We can all meet together, talk about it, and then they can kind of just give you the rundown of you know, everything from there. But there is an application that we would then share with you. It's just like an online forum, and it functions like a grant application. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then from there, you know, whatever it is, like we have materials also, like we have bollards and paint, all in a warehouse somewhere, I think in the Bay Area actually. But yeah, like we're actively doing stuff all the time, and
Cool.
and Pittsburgh is a priority for sure.
Great. Does it matter if they're in the city or not?
I think it should be in the city. I would imagine so. Although there have been talks about doing stuff like outside of cities that we operated in, but I don't think that's easier to accomplish.
Yeah, I think the relationship we have, and since Spin is really only in the city of Pittsburgh, that would probably be the bounds.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mary, oh, sorry, Eric, you unmuted.
A really quick, like related to this, I was just curious if you are planning on operating in the winter, and if so, maybe a good partnership would be to work with the city to help keep the bike lanes clear, or just purchase the the snow removal equipment for the city. Would be a really helpful thing. I think that would be mutually beneficial to all.
That's a good note. Maybe we can get plows on the front of the scooters. But I think the plan is for Spin to continue in the winter, but at a much lower presence.
Mary, can you quickly say yours? So
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So let me begin by saying I really support the program and the introduction of new forms of mobility. But this is a big social change in Pittsburgh. We have been talking about the technical, parking problem, GPS stuff. We've been talking about economics, but in making a change like this, there's another component, and that's the social component. And that's the question of expectations and behavior and misbehavior. It's the nature of social change like this, that the moment of transition, which is where we are now, is the moment at which habits get established. And it's the moment at which it's really most critical to work really hard on getting the right habits and the right examples, because people mimic things that they see. If you get good examples out, you can stay ahead of it. If people see a lot of bad examples, they will mimic the bad examples. And so I just want to stress the urgency of worrying about the social aspect of this program at this critical time in its life. To the extent that I would suggest that if it's at all possible, you redesignate some of your people effort to actively patrolling in areas where you know that there are violations. So I can take pictures of badly parked scooters and send them in, but practically speaking, I can't take pictures of scooters that are running red lights going the wrong way against traffic, riding around Shenley Plaza, because they're out of sight before I can get phone or a camera out. So I just want to urge you to try to find a way to devote some resources to modifying behavior just here in this first couple of months while the habits are getting established. And I think that's urgent at this time.
Yeah, I'd say that's a great note, and one that I can certainly reflect to the decision makers at DOMI. You know, we Spin definitely does their best in managing, and they do, I know, go to problem areas and actively pick up scooters that are definitely parked incorrectly. Just from looking at the GPS, but you know, there are aside from staff allocation, there may be automated ways of understanding where those problem areas are, using cameras and such, which I know that starts to get into kind of a difficult territory, and maybe one that DOMI isn't completely ready to get into. But it's something that we are looking into and kind of considering. But I'll put I'll maybe put that out there. I'll definitely escalate that comment though.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for coming and spending so much time with everybody. I'll definitely share your email, and hopefully you'll be hearing from a bunch of the bike ped groups about maybe doing some of this tactical urbanism, because it's a monthly conversation that I have with the groups. And if there's anything else that you can think of, you know, that maybe you'd want to partner with the groups or invite yourself to their meetings, or we can invite you to come to these meetings to discuss anything else. You know, we're here and we're ready to collaborate and help make every non-car trips, you know, a thing, the main way to get around Pittsburgh. So we are here. And thank you again for your time.
Yeah. Thanks. Always enjoy the opportunity to answer questions, and I'll put my email in the chat. So please reach out to me if you want to continue the discussion. And I think I might put some stats, some high level stats in the chat, because I saw some interesting questions on trip times and stuff. So, but yeah, thank you everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is there, I guess one last question, is there a difference between contacting you, Tosh, or Danny for Spin related things? Is it better to contact you, Danny, because you're at Spin, or is it
Yeah, I think as it relates to just like general operations stuff, I can totally pass that over to our team.
okay?
I think Tosh, I don't know, what do you think you'd be better at answering?
If I think like, yeah, you could pass it along to me, and I could figure out the right person to give it to at Spin. But yeah, any high level stuff, send my way as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving along to Bike Pittsburgh updates. And thank you to everybody for such great questions. There's a lot to take in. And for those who just joined too, this was recorded, so I'll share it later if you want to rewatch the Spin portion of this. But just to hand it over to Eric for some Move Forward PGH updates.
Hey, y'all. Well, I want to start with Move Forward PGH. I don't know if the cat's out of the bag or not, but Cassandra, our contact at DOMI, is leaving DOMI. So people should know that. And I don't know what what her replacement, or who her replacement's going to be at the moment. We just found out, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. So she's been she's been a great bike ped coordinator, really helped push a lot of the projects through, and will be sorely missed. But she is staying in Pittsburgh, from what I understand. But anyway, so if you have any questions for her, get them in before next week, before she leaves. they're going to be splitting up her duties, and so she's, I think trying to close out a lot of her stuff. But just want people to know that. As far as other projects that are happening, tomorrow is the public meeting for Aiken and Morewood. In brief, the city is planning a lane diet on Aiken between Ellsworth and, we'll say, Baum Boulevard. So hopefully a pretty cool project. I still don't know exactly what they're going to do in that really complicated block between Baum and Center, but you can think of it as basically an extension of the Liberty Ave bike lanes all the way to Ellsworth. So pretty cool project that they're working on. I'll drop a link to these meetings also in the chat if you want to go or register. And then the Shady Side Connector, there's a public meeting on September 22nd. It looks like they're going to be looking to push through, that might not be the best way to install some serious traffic calming along Ellsworth. And, there's going to definitely need to be, folks who want to see that happen, show up to the meeting, and be sure to, offer your support for these kinds of interventions, as there may be people who don't like these interventions as much there as well. But yeah, both of those you can see at the, I see Anna's posting the direct links. Anyway, really hope to see folks there. I think those are going to be some pretty cool projects. Safe trips in the Strip. People may remember from a couple of years ago, our Extend Penn campaign. We are relaunching that as Safe Trips in the Strip. While Extend Penn had some really nice alliteration, it was a little confusing in terms of where the bike lane, the extension should be, like whether it's on Penn or Smallman or whatever. So we're just sort of rebranding it as a Safe Trips in the Strip. And we are going to be relaunching the effort to get that bike lane connected, as it's something that didn't really happen as part of the Move Forward program, which we all were under the assumption it would. It still has an opportunity to be part of that, but with Cassandra leaving, a lot of that is up in the air. So we want to basically just know that we're going to be relaunching that initiative. And then Anna's typing, I can see we'll be collecting video interviews about getting around the Strip. There's going to be one opportunity. We're actually partnering with Move PGH on Parking Day. And you'll be able to, sorry, I'm typing on the minute. We'll be partnering with Parking Day, which will be an opportunity to be able to share your story. We want to really try to get some videos of people's experiences. I'll just skip to the bike racks through one, and then you can go back to Bike to Campus Week, Anna, just so then I can just turn off. Bike racks and 311s. We've been working with Domi on a pretty extensive bike rack program that's now finally coming to fruition. Just over the past week, they've installed, well, I actually haven't seen them, but we have slated around 120, let me see, 120 racks or so. The first batch should be going into the Baum Center, Craig Street corridor, with a sprinkling in Oakland as well to fulfill some really old 311 requests. And then downtown is just got another 70 racks, I think. I saw some of them were in. I haven't checked every one of them, so I don't know if all 70 are in yet. And then after that, we'll be moving on to the north side. And then we have several other batches, sort of in the works. East End, Homewood, Morningside, Mount Washington, beach view, et cetera. So we're really focusing on business districts, but also we're looking for people to really start 311ing places that they think could use bike parking. And they're just simple upside down U's. Will be the easiest thing to get in. Corrals are also requested, but there is a pretty decent list of corrals that the city is compiling. And so that might take longer at the moment, but simple upside down U racks, please 311 locations you think could use them, and we'll try our best to get them in through this program. And with that, I'll pass that to Anna.
Thank you. Just kind of bumping back up to the safe trips in the strip. I'm going to put a link in the chat, but also in the notes, there's a link if you would like to share your personal experience biking through the strip district or getting through it, and what solutions you think would help to remedy the issues that you face. I am collecting interviews that you either do yourself on your phone, or I can come out and video you and capture an interview, but we're hoping to put these videos out every 10 days. So we want as many as possible. And we also would like as many different perspectives as possible to show support for biking through the strip district. So if you are willing and able to either capture your own interview or would like me to come and capture it, just let me know and I'll send you the questions that we are asking people to answer. And there's also a link that I'll send right now in the chat if you want to sign up for a time slot for me to get your interview. So that is really helpful. We had some from before, but for this time around, we really want to have like a lot of interviews that will help really tell the story about getting through the strip district. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is Bike to Campus Week. So for the third year in a row, Pitt, CMU, and Chatham have taken part in creating this festival celebration of biking to campus. This year, it's in collaboration with Bike Pittsburgh. We're really helping to like amplify the messaging and give it some financial support, but it will be the week of September 20th through the 24th. On that Friday, there will be a bike fair in Shenley Plaza. We'll have vendors and different stuff going on from 12 till 4 p.m. right where that merry-go-round is in that area. We'll have a blog post out soon with all the different sessions that are going on. And if you're a Pitt employee, there'll be specific things to biking at Pitt. If you're a CMU employee or student, there'll be things specific to that, and the same with Chatham. So it's just going to be a really exciting week full of different events. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because it's celebrating biking. It's another chance to just get out there. If you know someone that goes to any of these universities, you know, there's some of the largest employers in the region, and there'll be some very like basic stuff to welcome new riders or people who are just starting to bike commute, or even seasoned riders who want to learn more about biking at their university. We'll also provide a Confident City cycling class that week. So if you would like to learn how to ride on the roads, or if you know someone at these universities, we'll have a class on that. And I'm really looking forward to it. And it's been a lot of work getting it together. So if you know people, look for that event coming up. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelsey if she is ready to give some updates from Friends of the Riverfront.
I'll give some quick ones. Hi, everyone. So a couple of things that we have in the works. One is the Baldwin Riverfront Parklet. Thank you if you've already filled out some feedback or input into what you want to see in that parklet. This is along the Three Rivers Heritage Trail and Gap in Baldwin before you get to Homestead. We had an open house where we presented the site concepts for that parklet, which include a few things for bikes like bike racks, fix a station, picnic areas, benches, more seating, more signage. So there's kind of two versions of that concept that are floating around, and we're still looking for feedback so we can draft the final site plan, and we'll be happy to get that feedback. I will drop a link into the chat when I'm done. And then as far as volunteer and stewardship events, So we have our stewards meeting tomorrow night. We usually have it every Thursday. What is this, the third Thursday? Are we on the third Thursday? Can't even remember. Second Thursday of the month. And we are looking for more stewards. So trail stewards generally observe and monitor and report what's happening on the trail, reporting maintenance issues, and then they sometimes will do light maintenance, vegetation, cutback, litter pickup, graffiti removal, those types of things. But really, it's what people are interested in doing. We meet once a month to discuss, but we're specifically really looking for trail stewards everywhere, but the Eliza Furnace, the Strip District, and part of Junction Hollow, really. So if you're interested in being a steward, please reach out, come to a meeting, see what it's like. There's no obligation, just to learn more about with the program, but we could really use more eyes and ears on the trail. And then we also are offering a limestone, we have a free workshop coming up that's training volunteers on how to repack limestone in Millvale. So that's on September 27th, and we'll be repacking about 1,200 feet of the trail in Millvale from the Three Rivers Boathouse to where the trail crosses the road about halfway down the trail. So September 27th, and both of those things will be up on the website. They're not events right now, but we will add them very shortly. That once we have some trained volunteers who know how to repack the limestone, we can do that in several other places in the city where there are some limestone trails that need repacking. So I will keep it brief, and if anyone has any questions about trails, let me know. Thanks.
Anthony?
Yes, I have a question about the trail. From the point towards Lawrenceville, that side, there's a section that's been closed off for a long time. Are they ever going to fix that part, or?
So I've heard some conflicting things about that, about reopening. So the last thing I heard from Buncher, which is the developer working on those buildings, this was as of 2 weeks ago, was that they're still aiming for an open date of 2022. So unfortunately, I know that some people thought it looks like it's done, but I guess there's more work that has to be done on a building. And so that's the last that I heard.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kelsey or Bike Pittsburgh?
Anna, this is Thomas. Just a quick, if you guys had a recap of Pedal Pittsburgh and how it went. I know it's not directly related to this meeting, but certainly a key event in your calendar.
Yeah, sure. So it went well. We capped out at almost 2,000 riders, which was what we got the permit for. So that was really exciting. There were new routes. I think every single route, except for maybe the 7-mile route, went down to the point this year, which was new. We've never gone directly down to the point. A lot of people suggested that more signage was needed because there were like large gaps of the ride where if you didn't have a phone or something like that, that you might have gotten a little bit off course. But that was the most feedback, or like the biggest feedback that we got. And otherwise, there wasn't too much else to report. Deb, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I did have a question. A friend of mine did Pedal Pittsburgh, and she's a nurse. She was at a point where a man fell off his bike and broke his ankle, and it was severely injured, and they called the EMTs, of course. But when the EMTs came, they said they could not take his bike. They could not mount it on the vehicle or put it inside. So I don't know. I just wondered what the protocol was, or if you could check on that and find out. They did offer, after much pleading, I guess, to call the police, and apparently the police did come and take the bike. But I just wanted to bring that up just as a, aside. I heard it was a great event. She had a great time, and they stayed with them the bicycle. She and her son, who is an EMT in another city, they stayed with the bicycle till the police came. So that's just one thing I wanted to throw out there, so you know. Thanks for this, a great event here.
Yeah, I'm sorry that happened. It looks like Erica needed to answer.
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if there is like an official protocol. I do
Yeah.
have a friend. I do have a friend who's a fireman, and I know that when he tells me when he responds, or often the fire department responds, they often do take the bike and they'll bring it back to the fire station. But yeah, that's a really good point. I don't think there is a good protocol for it. Especially
No, so
EMTs or
that's-
they're private companies sometimes.
Oh, okay. Well, that might be something, to keep in the back of your mind if it would ever come up or put on the list. I didn't
Right.
realize they were private companies, and that's a good
Sometimes.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, really great question. I've never thought of that before.
Could I follow up?
Yeah.
One possibility is that there are some taxi limo drivers around who have bike racks, who do transport bikes like up and down the Gap. And if their numbers could be provided to the EMTs, then when something like this arrives, they would have a phone number that someone could call to get someone to come and retrieve the bike and take it someplace.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We do have the SAG wagons for the ride, so I'm not.
But this would be perpetual SAG wagon, because it would be part of the equipment in the ambulances that at any event or on any occasion in which a bicyclist was transported to the hospital and the bicycle, they had to do something with the bicycle.
Yeah.
If there's a service that they could call that would retrieve the bicycle, and the guys I know that do this are trustworthy, they would take it home and bring it to someplace later on, or they could take it to a house, they could take it to a police station, just someplace where it could be stored safely.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be great, and that would alleviate a lot of stress on the injured person's part, because
Right, so I'll suggest that as an initiative that Mike Pittsburgh might look into to
Golden
provide that.
Triangle might be a good resource on that. I know they do things like that for trips. They might be someone we could reach out to.
As a matter of fact, the drivers I'm thinking about drive for Golden Triangle, among others.
Well, something to think about. Thank you for suggesting that. So moving on to bike ped updates. I'm just gonna call on people and go down what I have pulled up on my chat. So starting with Highland Park. Do you have any updates? Nothing, Nancy or Adams?
Nothing that I can think of.
Okay. North Side, Walk Ride North Side. Jesse, are you still on the call? No. Allison, do you have anything to share?
No, I didn't go to the meeting yesterday. I'm sorry.
Okay. Bloomfield, Bruce.
So only two updates. One is we had our Neighbor Way ride along with Better Streets Lawrenceville from August 27th. And it was great. We featured 2 neighbor ways as well as a shortcut uphill route. And we've actually created some graphics for all of you to figure out maybe a short route between Butler to Penn Avenue uphill. So check out the website. And the second thing I wanted to bring up was to reiterate the importance of the tomorrow's meeting for the Aiken Avenue / Liberty Avenue, what we're calling a connector meeting. That's tomorrow at 6 p.m. Make sure to RSVP and register on the Zoom invite with Domi, Move Forward PGH. I mean, as you know, like the Ellsworth discussion has become quite heated and contentious. And so we feel like Aiken shouldn't be a problem, but it doesn't help if we get Aiken, but we don't get something on Ellsworth, and vice versa. If we get something on Ellsworth, but not on Aiken, like there's no connection, and we're kind of still at square one where there's no way to connect between Shadyside and Bloomfield, right? So please come out tomorrow to the online Zoom meeting where Domi will be presenting what we think would be something they presented before, which is a protected bike lane on Aiken between Baum and Ellsworth, but also to throw it out there, not to take Shadyside Complete Streets thunder, but also to attend their meeting on the, I believe, the 22nd. It's important that we talk about connectivity and networks, because if not, they're just separated and it doesn't help anyone. There's just a beautiful new bike lane that goes nowhere. Those are the only two updates from Bloomfield, and great to see everyone.
Thank you. North Hills Walk, Bike, Run Alliance. Did I get the name right?
You did. That's great. Thank you, Sarah. Or Anna, sorry. We have our first meeting on Thursday, the 16th, and a handful of people signed up. So should be some good momentum.
Do you want to give an update on your first event that you had too?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we tabled at an event in Ohio Township, which is just the neighborhood that happened to have an event after we kind of got together. And I don't know, we got 50 people's names on a list. The people interested gave lots of suggestions for bike routes, and not all of which may be feasible, but let's see. So we're dreaming at this point and trying to influence our local strategy review that's coming up here this year, next year.
Yeah.
I could just add, Anna, to that, because I was at that event too with Ed, was so kind of organized. And if anybody needs maps, we actually went to AAA and got maps, and then we had people at the event, which was like a community day, come and pin where they lived and then highlight where they would like to see the bike routes in the North Hills area, that Ohio Township area. So that was very helpful. I think that'll be great data to take to the communities. And AAA was nice, they gave us all those nice maps. So just a thought. Thanks.
And Deb was so nice to show up and deliver the maps, actually. So that was a brilliant idea, Deb.
Oh, well, thanks. But yeah, it was fun. And I think the North Hills really needs a wake up call because I live in McCandless and we don't have one bike path, one bike lane, or, so we're working on that. Thanks for all your help in the city. We can model a lot from you guys.
Yeah, thank you for doing all that. Squirrel Hill.
I think the big thing in Squirrel Hill was the Squirrel Hill East-West connector, for which there was a public meeting, and the Move Forward Pittsburgh site has the video of the meeting and the answers to some of the questions that were asked at the meeting, and they followed up afterwards with further answers. And so if you're interested in East-West through Pittsburgh, I'll refer you to the material that's online at Move Forward Pittsburgh.
Thank you. Lawrenceville.
Just a couple quick things. I think since the last meeting, the final connector for the Neighborway was completed. I think that's happened since the last meeting. So that's the connection that goes between 51st Street and 50th Street along Spirit, and then connects into the Neighborway at Hatfield. So that was where we started the Neighborway celebration ride that Bruce mentioned, and it's very nice and we're very excited about it. And so it's a really easy way now to keep off of Butler and really be able to use those side streets continuously through Upper Lawrenceville. And then the other thing was just we got some upgrades to some really problematic intersections in Lawrenceville that we're excited about. And one was just done last week changed the signaling at 40th Street and Butler to add a leading pedestrian signal. So it gives pedestrians about 3 seconds to get into the crosswalk, so that they're more visible to cars that are turning. So that's exciting. And then I saw Emily was on too. So if Emily has anything to add, please feel free to jump in.
I don't have anything. I think that's it. Thanks, Kelsey.
Thanks.
Thank you. Shady Side.
Hey, so Eric and Bruce both said this, but it's really important. We have the Aiken meeting coming up tomorrow and then the Ellsworth meeting coming up on the 22nd. So those are both really important to the whole East End. So really encouraging everybody to go to those. Also related to the Ellsworth project, we're probably going to be doing a letter writing / petition to Councilperson Strasburger related to that. So keep an eye out for that. And then our other project that we have coming up is we're doing a walking tour of bad pedestrian intersections focused around, I guess, East Shady Side, so like near the Target and area around there. And Councilperson Strasburger said she will attend that, so we're going to be walking around and talking about what makes those intersections dangerous for pedestrians and what we'd like to see improve there. Lori's organizing that, and yeah, more details to come. We have a Facebook event in the meeting notes so far. And oh, I should say that is on Sunday, the 19th at 11 a.m.
I had a question. I guess this is always kind of an ongoing question, but if you don't live in Councilperson Strasburger's district but have a vested interest in the project, are you still permitted / welcomed to participate?
Yeah, I think it's actually great if she hears from other people who say like, I use this card or it's important to me. You can also tell your own council person, but you know, she can hear from people outside her district. I think that's fine.
Good to know. Thank you.
West Pittsburgh.
Okay. Laura Beth is meeting with Domi. Well, I don't know if it's tomorrow or Monday.
Monday.
To talk about our trolley trail issues. We've been at this for a couple years now, and one of the problems is there are residents that have encroached upon the legally city-owned property, and lawyers have to get involved, etc. So we're trying to get this to move forward so it comes from Crafton Boulevard all the way into the West End. We've been kind of inactive. We didn't even have the memorial ride for Dennis this year. I mean, we didn't have it last year due to COVID. And I don't know what the situation was or why we didn't have it this September. And then the state has updated the crash data for 2020. So the bike crash map has been updated. Other than that, the west side of the city is devoid of any kind of bike ped activity. And we feel so sad.
Thank you for the update.
Sure.
Greenfield.
Well, we're still waiting to hear back from our capital budget request that we sent in last year, I think now, requesting a whole bunch of stuff that I think Domi had almost all of them on their radar already. So we're waiting to hear what happened to that. And we were going to follow up with them about doing traffic calming on Hazelwood Avenue. So it's useful to hear that Cassandra's leaving. We'll get on that. That's about it, really.
Thank you. Mount Washington.
Hey, So obviously we are very new at this point, and so I don't have much to report. As you know, we are having our second meeting on the 20th. I'm still trying to talk to every person that I meet on the incline, which is, I think Jake's on here. That's how I met him. Just trying to get a little more participation here. But other than that, we're just trying to figure out, who we are and what we're doing.
Yep. Great start though. Etna.
Nothing to report. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Verona. Trisha, I don't know if you have anything.
Hey, yeah, that's me. And I think kind of what we were up to. I am excited to report that we did just receive some funding to work on our active transportation plan. So I hope that we'll have more to report in the coming months about things here in Verona, making it more walkable, bikeable. But yeah, we're still just like in the ground phase of that. So that's really all I have to say. And, thank you for all your efforts so far, helping us, get some new people involved, some new ideas going. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. That's great news.
Yeah.
Anyone, who have I missed? There are a lot of people in this chat. I scrolled up and down. I think I got everyone, but I'm not sure.
It's Thomas from Southside.
Thank you.
I think Zach either is or was on. I'm not sure if you're still here, but just a couple things from Southside. I didn't catch the name of the person from Mount Washington. Zach, Bill McShane and I had talked about trying to go. Both of us had things going on that night and weren't able to attend, but we would really love to be able to partner with Mount Washington on something. We've got some ideas for some things that sort of bridge the gap between Southside and Mount Washington. So I guess I can throw my email in there. If you want to send me an email, maybe we can try to reconvene. Our next meeting would be Tuesday, the 21st. So that would be the day after yours. So maybe we can try to do something jointly or whatever. Specific to Southside, the Carson Street reconstruction project is still ongoing. If anybody's been down here lately, they've been digging trenches down the middle of the road, which are going to become islands that will block certain movements across Carson where they don't want traffic to be turning left, for example, around Birmingham Bridge. Many of them are already in process. They're still working on that. I have not heard any updates on the timeline for that. I had initially been told they would be done by November of this year. I think that's a pretty optimistic goal considering we're mid-September already and they still have quite a lot to do. They still have some signal work to do. They haven't even paved the road yet. And then they're still working on islands and things. So I suspect due to the COVID delays and other issues going on there that they're probably going to have to extend that project into 2022. But I have not heard anything official on that yet. So I guess still, from looking at it with my eyeballs, I cannot believe they're going to be done in the next 8 to 10 weeks, but good luck if they are. Other things that have been going on in Southside, we have been looking into doing some vehicle counting. Zach, I'm not sure if you're still on, if you want to cover that. And we've kind of been keeping an eye on the Neighbor Way, working on that. We had a separate meeting with Tosh from Move Pittsburgh to discuss scooters and their impact on Southside. And I think this was news to me, and he didn't cover it in his overall presentation, but in the initial phase of the project, they had Southside blocked off as being a no scooter zone, which was somewhat of a surprise because I have definitely seen scooters there. And I know Tosh said the geofencing is, quirky and some people get through and other people just continue pushing the thing as far as they want to go. So the way that they are looking at doing in Southside, and I think reading between the lines, this is me, not him, that maybe in some of the other more densely packed neighborhoods that they might do something similar, but they will not allow you to return the scooters just anywhere. And they are thinking that they might put in the small corrals in, like on Sarah Street, for example, which is parallel to Carson, one block over, and Sydney or Wharton on the other side, closer to the river, so that you would not be able to drive the scooter on Carson Street. They want to funnel the scooter traffic to the parallel streets that would be a little quieter and less busy. all sorts of complicating factors there of how are we going to use this thing as transportation versus as a toy? Do people want to be going to the businesses, in which case you're forbidding them from doing that? Do the businesses want them, or are they more of an obstruction? So I think there's some work to be done there, but they do seem to be working with us, and they reached out to us and actually approached us and asked if we would be willing to have a meeting with them and kind of give a neighborhood perspective on it. So I think I will say, my initial reaction to the scooters was not positive. I feel like they are trying to do what they can do and realizing that they are not omnipotent and they can't control what every nut job does with one of their scooters at every moment of the day, but they really do seem to be trying. So I feel like we're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and would like to work with them proactively and productively. So Zach, anything you wanted to cover on any other topics?
Yeah, so about the volunteership. So we are getting we've selected a few spots to do some bike counting in the south side, including the south side of East Carson on Sarah Street to see how traffic is flowing parallel to the neighborway. We also obviously want to get some counts done for the neighborway along multiple touch points on the South Side Works all the way through down to 10th Street to understand how people are currently using it and maybe some of the small areas like where there might be not obvious splits on Warden and Sydney Street. So we're looking to get those counted, as well as getting some counts on South 18th Street going up and down the hill to the slopes. So that's, we're getting some counts ready, and we're pretty much there on how we're going to be collecting that stuff. We just need to get it kind of sent out at this point. So if you're looking to potentially volunteer to do some bike ped counts or would like to get involved, keep an eye out for them. We'll be asking for volunteers shortly.
Great, thank you. Bruce said that he would volunteer. Anywho, is there anyone else that I didn't call on? It looks like I got everyone. Is there anything else that people would like to bring up? I wanted to make a small announcement that transportation camp is happening again. I've personally never attended it, but I know Eric has, and I'm sure some of you have, and it's going to happen on November 6th this year. From the organizer, they told me that right now it's planned for in person, but it'll 90% chance that it's going to just turn completely virtual. It's a Saturday, and they have scholarships too if you're not able to pay the admissions fee. But if you're interested, I put the link in the chat. And parking day is also September 17th. As you heard, Spin is working with different groups to do an event for that day. But if you want to do something, even something very simple as just taking over a spot somehow, with chalk or something like that, just let me know, and we can try to figure something out. But I just wanted to throw it out there. And then that's all that I have. Would anybody like to add any final comments before we adjourn?
This may be the first time we've ever finished early.
There always has to be a first, right? With that, I guess I will adjourn it, and just look out for the recording, and I'm going to save the chat, and I'll put it in the notes, and I'll send the notes out and stuff as soon as possible. But thank you everyone for coming out. It was really great to have you and hear from everybody. And thanks for the great questions to Spin and Move PGH. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye.
Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.